Bookcase and Coffee presents Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance.
Hey everyone, welcome to this quick shot of romance. This is our throwback quick shot, the fourth Thursday of every month. We do a historical romance for all our historical fans. So on this episode of A Quick Shot of Romance, we're reviewing Lady Sophia's Lover by Lisa Kleypas. And with me for this episode is Katie, the Duchess of all things historical. Welcome back to the podcast, Duchess Katie. I'm totally using that everywhere I can now.
I love it. I will take it.
I do feel like we need crowns, though. I feel like we need crowns. Like, I keep looking at tiaras. I keep looking at tiaras like, I'm going to get a tiara. And then I feel like I need to have the Amy Farrah Fowler moment from Big Bang Theory, where she's like, and it's anyway.
I'm down. I'm so down.
Okay, we're going to have to get tiaras. I think we're in. I'm pretty sure Sadie and Leah would wear tiaras, too, so.
I know that Sadie would. I think she was looking, like, shopping for them at one point when we were talking about this.
I did find one on Etsy that was, like, $79. It was all, like, rainbow gems and stuff like that. But I was pretty sure the mister would, like, file the divorce papers.
Be like, okay, now we've gone too far.
Right. You can't spend $80 on a tiara, but it's a tiara.
Why not?
Anyway, so give us the synopsis of Lady Sophia's Lover from Goodreads.
Alrighty. So, why is Lady Sophia looking for a lover? And could she seduce the most marriageable man in London? Lady Sophia Sydney would do anything to ensnare the unattainable Sir Ross Cannon. Her goal, to ruin his reputation and cause a scandal that would be the talk of all London. So she insinuates herself into his life by gaining his trust and living in his house. Every morning, her lush presence tempts him beyond all reason. The way she bends over the table to serve him the meal she has prepared, the way her hands oh so gently yet sensuously brush against him. Every night she promises with her eyes and her body that the hours before dawn could be spent in unbridled passion instead of restless sleep, if only he'd let her share his bed. She knows he is falling more in love with her each day, but she never counted on falling in love with him, and she never dreamed that he might very respectably ask for her hand in marriage.
So the release date for this is June 4th, 2002. Trope, historical romance, widow, orphan seeking revenge. Sir Ross is definitely an alpha hero, and Lady Sophia is a spinster, quote unquote, on the shelf, and he is a silver fox. Steam level, I have this as a 4 out of 5. Is pretty damn sexy and flirty.
I would agree. Yes, I would agree.
And angst level, I would say a 3. I mean, there wasn't a ton of back and forth. It was much more flirting steam angst than situational angst.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it wasn't so much that neither one of the two of them was fighting their attraction to the other. It was also just kind of trying to be like, oh, okay, well, how do we make this work? you know, like they weren't really just being like, it can't work, it'll never work. It was just kind of like, all right, we got to figure it out.
So is this is your like all-time favorite historical or one of them?
No, it's one of them. Yeah.
Them.
I just, because I love where it takes place and who the characters are instead of your duchesses and dukes and the ballrooms and all this other kind of stuff. So it was kind of nice to visit something a little different.
Well, and I said before we started recording, so I come to historical romance from the old school. I've read the Jude Devereaux, the Joanna Lindsays, the Judith McNaughts, the Julie Garwoods, which are very Duke and Duchess heavy. They're not usually the commoner or working, blue-blooded working class. But the way that this is written, the way that the story is told, it has that more traditional historical romance feel to it. So, I mean, I found it really enjoyable. It's a really great story. It is sexy. It is sexy, sexy. Fast-paced. And I do think that it's an original, engaging plot.
Mm-hmm.
So set up the plot for us a little bit.
Well, so basically, when we meet Sophia on page 1, she's looking for a job, and Ross is the surly kind of like chief magistrate in London on Bow Street. So, he controls the Bow Street runners, which is like their, investigative police detective with a
Right.
little bit more flexibility. And like he gets a boner on page 1. Like when he sees her, he's
Yep.
ready to go. And and the setup from book 1 is that he's a widower, and he's been celibate. They call him the monk of Bow Street.
Bow
I can't
Street.
remember.
Yeah,
The
the
monk of
monk
Bow
of Bow
Street.
Street. And I think he's been celibate for like 8 years or something like that.
Yeah,
It was...
his wife had passed away well before we even meet him. But he's never tempted, and he is a man of a strict moral compass, and he's not trying to win favor from anybody, anything like that. So he meets Sophia, and he's already like well established in his role and has his mind made up about shit, and he's like, uh-oh.
Right.
I got a boner for this lady in here now. She wants to work for me, and I can't in good conscience hire her, but I'm not going to tell her no.
Well, yeah, and he's like, and he comes off, he's very cynical.
Mm-hmm.
He is very disciplined. I said he's very stoic. And so after being celibate for 8 years, it's like all of a sudden he meets Lady Sophia, and she brings him back to life almost. Like,
yeah.
And I think that that's what makes his fall so wonderful is he pushes against it because he has this very one-track mind, one-track situational person. And here's this lady who is throwing all sorts of crap his way, and he's not quite sure how to deal with it all.
Right. And I think that's why I liked him so much, because and her too, like as a couple, like even before they're officially a couple, because she knows about his reputation as somebody who is so rigid and so dedicated to his work, and how very little she has to do to actually kind of start undoing that. So she, like, I feel like in her mind, she knows, she was like, this isn't normal. And I feel like it shouldn't be this easy. So I feel like she's got her guard up while he's letting his down, because she's like, how did I make this work? And that's part of that's part of a romance period. It's
right.
Like, we got somebody who's going to fall real hard, real quick.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and, he's devoted his life and his career, and he's the best of people. Like, total alpha hero. Like, he is the man in charge, but he is very devoted to what he does for a living. And I find that that's, I think, part of what is Sophia's attraction to him. Is this devotion that he has to what he does.
And not wavering, because like, she sets out to uncover bad decisions that he's made or corners that he's cut and this, that, and the other thing, and she can't find it.
Yeah.
No matter what. And so she comes in with her own prejudice, because her brother was sentenced to a prison hull, and she was led to believe that it was Sir Ross's decision to send a young boy for a petty crime to basically, send him to death because he was young and they were always getting sick. So that's why she's there. She's there to get revenge for her brother.
Well, and that's it. I said this story has a little bit of a revenge plot. So if you're looking for a story that, is a little shrouded in mystery and revenge, if you like that kind of romance, this has it. It does it really well. I also like how Kleypas kind of takes on the brokenness of the Regency judicial system. The fact that this young boy who was young is
14,
sent to prison, and it's not going to do well for him. I mean, this is going to be detrimental to him. And I like how
Right.
she engages you into Sophia's fight.
Right. Well, you know, and I think that's why I liked it so much too, is she doesn't they're both such stubborn characters that, but when they are open and honest and they communicate with each other, they listen. Like that's wild to me. Like they don't just, like, they have their minds made up about something, but when they have new information, they reassess. And I think that's
Right.
what was so like refreshing about this story to me. Because there's a lot of, like the revenge and that's shrouded through this.
It keeps the storyline fresh. It keeps the plot moving. It doesn't feel, there aren't too many moments where you're like, well, let's get to the next thing. Because there is this constant, they come together and then they rethink and move back on. And, you know, when you top that with all the sexual tension that is in this story.
Oh, baby.
You're like, oh, hello, storyline. Keep on moving.
Yeah. You're like, okay, let's do more of that, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Lady Sophia might be one of the most tenacious characters I have read in a historical romance. Like, there is not much that stops this lady. Like, she has a plan.
Right.
And she is going in.
Yeah.
And I loved that about her. I will say, so she has to tell some lies in this story to help move things forward for her cause of her brother and all that kind of stuff. I did have moments where it was a little hard to take. I was just like, I wanted her just come out, be honest, be who you, tell him the truth. It didn't make me love her less. It just made for the stories to be it just bothered me a little bit.
Yeah. And I could see that. And I could see that too. And, you know, and I think it's partially because Sir Ross was so open and honest, and he didn't have to be, you know, like, that's what you want in a partnership. But like, he knew fairly quickly after he spent time with her and, you know, after she was nursing him back to health, after he got shot. Of course, there's a good little sickbed moment in there. But, you know, so he felt comfortable with her. He wanted to be honest with her. He wanted to tell her things. And even after all of that, I mean, there's a line towards the end of the book and he's like, even after all of this, you don't trust me, you know? And she's like, but I do. And he's like, well, then fucking act like it, lady.
Right. Well, he's so honorable and so dignified. Yeah. And so there are these moments where you're just like, why would you break his trust like that? Like, he is such a good guy that you're being stupid, lady. Stop it.
Well, it's clear she's like super insecure. I mean, I can't hold that against her because of her experience in life leading up to meeting him and everything. So I see why, you know, she felt like she needed to do that, but it's like, you have so little faith in this man that, you know, you stack the cards against him without his knowledge, basically.
Well, right. So. And loyalty is really important to him, you know? And so it does cause some problems within the story itself between the two of them. Yeah. Do you have a favorite scene in this book?
Oh. Well, okay. So I love everything about, like, pretty much every sex scene that they have is amazing. But the one when they go to the house to look at one that they're going to rent with the carriage horse exercise machine.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Because she's like, this isn't going to work. And he's like, watch, we'll make it work. And she's like, all right. I just like how they're both so playful with each other too. Like, yeah, you know, they're both willing to try all the things, you know, and they both realize too, like after they have one of their many fights, after they learn about Nick and his identity, and I think she's trying to go down on him or something. And he's just thinking, he's like, this isn't going to solve the issue. And then he's like, yeah, all right, well, let's give it a shot. Might as well.
Right. It's worth a try.
Yeah.
So I just love the flirting in this book. And I think it's the chemistry between these two characters. This was sensual and flirtatious. So if, it just made the story that much better. I'm just like, yes, flirting makes this story. And that's something sometimes that I miss in contemporary romance. In historical romances, we see so much flirting because it has to take a minute to get to that point. Because inevitably it's going to have to be married before we can get our first really big sex scene. And so historical romance does flirting so well. And this book was a fantastic example of flirting. So
yes,
I did love that.
I love that too, because it also means like, because they aren't people of the ton. They're both, Sophia comes from a noble family, but Sir Ross has influence and, responsibility attached to his name, but he didn't really care after he started to figure out how much he cared for her. He was just like, yeah, I'm going to flirt with her. I'm going to say naughty things and I'm going to touch her in front of other people. And I'm going to be fine if she touches me. Like anytime Sophia got really embarrassed because she reacted, and he was like, okay, you need to calm down because it's fine. We're adults. I love it. I love that.
Okay, so let's get to our wrap up of the book. Did you like this book?
I love this book. I actually haven't read the last book in the series, so I still need to read that one. It's way better than the first one in my opinion. So yes, I love this book.
Stinking TBR lists, right?
Yeah.
I also liked this book very much. It's the kind of Regency romance that I like to read. This was more than just finding someone to marry. The plot was so well done and the story was incredibly engaging. Like I cannot say enough how engaging this story was. And it reads so fast. You are hooked from the moment it starts.
There's not too much setup and build up. Like you really kind of, you just hit the ground running with them.
Yeah. Who would typically like this book in your opinion?
I think anybody who likes historical romance would like this book, because I think it's right there on the cusp of the more old school stuff to, like you were saying before, to bridging the gap to the newer stuff, because this isn't something that is just black and white dukes and duchesses. It's about the underworld essentially, and revenge, and I mean there's a lot of elements in this book, and they have
marriage. It's not marriage for procreation. It's not marriage for carrying on of a title or a scandal. And
so I think a lot of people who don't like those things would love this book.
Yes, I would agree. I also think that if you are a contemporary romance lover and like a Silver Fox romance, this is a great way to bridge over to that kind of story. So because again, it's not the fluff of traditional historical romance. So I think it can bridge the crack between contemporary to historical. So
and we're not dealing with a virgin. I mean, that has its place in time, but we're not dealing with virgins here, and that's great. We're dealing with an inexperienced lady, but Sir Ross is just perfect to me. Like, he doesn't judge her at all.
Yeah.
And he's not so much of a workaholic in this book that it takes you out of it. People should read it. You don't need to read the first one to read this one.
Okay, and as I was going to ask, would you recommend this book, Katie?
I sure would. Please read it.
I would for sure also do that. I'm intrigued to read the rest of this series. So I actually downloaded them from my library. I love the library. So, but yeah, I mean, this was so good. I love dipping my toes back into historical, because it's been a moment since I've read it, and I'm excited. So,
yes.
And also, I kind of want to tease that next month, our historical romance. So the last last month in February, we did a historical throwback quick shot with Lady Sadie. And this time it's me and Katie. And in April, Duchess Katie and Lady Sadie will be our historical romance people for the quick shots of romance. So I'm super excited to kind of expand our expand our reach to bring in historical romance, because there are so many people that read it. And since it isn't what I do mainly, I'm happy to turn the reins over to the two of you. You guys are so amazing, and you love it. You love the historical, so
We sure
awesome.
do.
Anyway,
sure
if
do.
you've
It's gonna
heard
be really fun.
crashes, if you've heard crashes in this episode, my dog is over here hitting things because I think he has business. So, anyway, this is my life, complete and utter chaos. Anyway, thank you for joining us on this quick shot of romance. Duchess Katie, we can't wait to have you back next month and talk about
gonna be
all
fun.
things historical.
Yes, me either. I can't wait.
Till next time, everyone.
Bye.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.